I'll keep playing the pictures as we debate this tonight. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. We have Nikita Menkovich from Moscow. He's director of the Eurasian Analytical Club. We have Fred Wire, senior journalist from Moscow to my left. The bands will be up soon. We have Peter Zalmayev from Kiev, and we have Charles Kopchin, who's senior fellow on the Council of Foreign Relations, and he's a professor at Georgetown University from Washington. Now, Nikita, why on earth would Zelensky try to send a drone, make it fly over the Kremlin, and try to kill Putin? I mean, why? Where does this make sense even to you? It gives Russia a right to take the moral justification and bring the war to civilian areas. Ukraine has promised a strong counteroffensive. You can change your tactics in the war, use this as a moral justification. But why should we believe what Russia is claiming?
You should believe in facts, because it's absolutely usual for terrorists to kill people. It's not only about life of the Russian president. Today, Ukrainian terrorists injured 3 people, women and children, in Donetsk, using those artillery. They're killing people again and again. It's usual for terrorists. Of course, myself, want to live. I don't want to die. Your guest you call Zalmayev, you remember, his real name is Zalmayev, he's an American citizen from the New York City. He wants my life, but I don't want to die. Also, Mr. Putin doesn't want to die too. Even Mr. Lukashenko, who is also was an object of the assassination attempt committed by the group, including Mr. Zalmayev from United States. Mr. Lukashenko also wants to leave.
No, so I'm sorry, but all this is okay. We all want to live, but the point is, are you saying the Kremlin is so badly unguarded? There is no air defense system? I mean, you can just fire a drone, it will be allowed to fly over, and then, as the pictures show, hover over nicely around the Kremlin, then launch a little bomb attack to try and assassinate Putin and then fly away. I mean, this is, it's unbelievable, Fred. It's too fantastical to even be true out here. It sounds like a false flag operation to me. There is an air defense system which is deployed 2 kilometers from the Kremlin. Don't tell me the Kremlin is so unguarded. Okay, Peter's responding to you. Peter's on the debate from Kiev. Peter.
Mr. Arnab.
Peter's responding. Peter, ladies and gentlemen, do you think this was an attempt to kill Putin? Peter from Kiev.
Let's first say that
audio is not clear as usual. 1 second, Peter.
Video.
Thank you, Aditi. Peter, audio is not good with Nikita. Peter versus Fred. Thank you.
And I want to answer. You said it is a
Can I speak?
Yes, please. I'm saying to my producers, Fred versus Peter. Yes, Peter.
Yes, so basically I wanted to say that the likes of what we've spotted in Moscow has never happened. Not even during World War II.
Fixed the audio.
What you said, Mr. Paswami, is very much correct. You know, an event of such magnitude
audio not good.
is unprecedented, and it is very likely a false flag operation. Let me just say that the Ukrainian government has categorically denied participating. It's denying all responsibility simply because in the Kremlin is no military target, and the value of it is very questionable. Ukraine goes after military objects, military installations on occupied territories. Everything else could be the work of the KGB agents, like I said, a possible flag operation, or some kind of internal operation that has apparently taken up arms against Vladimir Putin, derailing trains, going after.
I'm going to fix all the audio lines. This is terrible tonight because I'm having such audio issues out here.
Yes.
Peter, I'm going to fix your audio. I have to fix Nikita's audio. Having terrible audio with both of you out here. Charles, what's your take on this? Is this real?
I agree with you, Arnab, that the most likely source of this is a false flag operation, and that's because it doesn't make sense for the Ukrainians to carry out an attack against the Kremlin on the eve of an offensive, which would give the Russians some kind of license to carry out reckless attacks against Ukraine. I also think it's not credible that the Ukrainians would be able to fly drones all the way from Ukrainian territory, through Russian territory, into Moscow, into the zone of the Kremlin. So my best guess, and listen, Arnhem, nobody knows yet what happened. We don't have any facts. We only have counterclaims that it's either the Russians carrying out a false flag operation, or it is some other group, Russian opposition, or some third party that may have done this. But I think it's very unlikely that this was a deliberate attack carried out by the Ukrainians. They have no interest in provoking Russia as they're about to launch what will likely be a reasonably successful offensive in the coming weeks.
No, why would Russia launch a false flag operation? And if there are false flag operations which are to be launched, there are all kinds of false flag operations, Fred, but why would Russia organize an attack on the Kremlin? Why would Russia organize an attack on the dome of the Kremlin, which has such symbolic relevance to the Russian people, Fred? The possibility of a false flag operation is there, but would it be on the Kremlin?
If you're asking me,
Yes,
I actually find it quite unlikely. You know, the Ukrainians have attacked in several directions. They attacked the Crimea Bridge. They sent assassins to kill Daria Dugina. I think we know that for sure. They have been launching long-range drone attacks on strategic Russian airfields. The Engels airfield was hit with a Strij, a repurposed Soviet-era reconnaissance drone. And in every single case, they do deny it. They turn westward and deny it. So I don't find it unbelievable at all. And I think it's a good point. You know, making your leader look vulnerable like that, letting all the Russian TV audiences are viewing that video right now. I don't really think that Russia would give itself a black eye quite voluntarily like that. I find it counterintuitive. So I think it's another Ukrainian attack, which they're denying. But its purpose, perhaps not to kill Putin, but to disrupt the May 9th, to strike fear, to push back, because Ukrainian cities are being bombarded every single day. I think that this is symbolical. It's a very strong message. I don't know what its impact will be on Russians. I think they'll just take it in stride, but I think it's very likely what the Kremlin says it is, a Ukrainian attack. And how did it get in? Look, I'm old enough to remember when a German lad flew a small Cessna plane all the way from Germany and landed it in Red Square in 1987. Things get through air defense nets. Look at the United States. A Chinese spy balloon flew right over the entire continental United States just a couple months ago. The sky is big and it's full of objects. These sort of things happen.
No, but again, you know, if you can, do I have? Let me just ask. Do I have Peter back? Peter, are you there?
I'm here.
Yeah, because
can you hear me?
Yeah, Peter, you see,
yes.
Fred says things come through. So basically he's saying that the air defense system around the Kremlin has been broken through by the Ukrainians. That's a big claim. That's a big claim. That also shows how weak Moscow is. Nikita, that shows how weak it's admission of weakness. Are you admitting your systems are so weak that a simple drone can fly through and attack the Kremlin?
Mr. Arnav, would you give me a chance to answer? You asked me a question for 10 minutes ago, but didn't get me a chance to say a word. As I said, the situation is quite usual. Maybe you forget 2001, when the Pentagon was attacked by the big plane, not a little drone, but big plane. Did you say it is a false flag attack? Did you say that United States is completely weak? Did you say anything about conspiracy? No.
This is the Kremlin, for God's sake, Nikita. This is the Kremlin. This is the Kremlin. This is the Kremlin, for God's sake. Are you saying you are so unguarded?
As I said, you want to say that American Pentagon, the staff of American army is unguarded? You want to say that the small group of Afghan terrorists used a big plane, did attack it in 2001? Yes, it is what we want to say.
Nikita,
because
you're not answering.
Nikita, Peter's responding. 1 second, Nikita, Peter's responding. Peter.
I understand, Mr. Zalmay, you want me to be silent and killed. But Mr. Zalmay, go to your New York City and tell your fairy tales to your brothers there, please. It is not your name.
Listen. I listened to you.
So please, Mr. Zalmay,
and now please listen to me.
Take your time.
Will you please let me talk?
For your time. As I said,
1 minute, Nikita, 1 minute, please. Nikita, 1 minute, please. Peter is responding to you. You have to.
Arnab, you were.
Thank you. Thank you.
How can anybody for me when I didn't finish?
Nikita, just wait a while. Nikita, I think when we are getting a response, you should hear the other side now. You know, Nikita, the fact is that there is another view. If you,
Mr. Arnab, you asked me a question.
Yes, I asked you a question and you gave an answer, and I am asking you a counter question now, Nikita. I am asking you a counter question, Nikita. Is it a justification to attack Bakhmut with more ferocity? Right? After the heavy estimated losses of 100,000 troops in the city of Bakhmut, which Russia seeks to completely take over. Is it an attempt, this whole thing, to justify lethal weapons supply by Beijing? Is it because, allow me to ask you, is it because the Wagner group is threatening to withdraw troops? If ammunition is not replenished, you are facing major casualties. The reality is it's going wrong for you. And you are probably trying to change things by saying that our leader was about to be assassinated and we need to change the nature of the war. We need to take it to the civilian areas. So maybe you're trying to change the direction of the war by claiming that there was an assassination attempt on Putin. That's what I'm saying.
Mr. Arnab, you're asking your questions longer than your guests are trying to answer them.
No, you're not answering my question. My questions are fine.
You have some problems with me, or you have some problems with facts I'm talking about?
I have a problem with the fact that you're not answering my question. I'm saying to you, at this point of time, Russia is stepping up the offensive, right? You said to me, Mr. Nikita, now listen to my question, whether it's long or short, it doesn't matter. You said to me, right, 1 year and 3 months back, that we are winning the war in 10 days. 1 year and 3 months back, you said that to me.
No, you're lying,
1 year and 3 months back, you said it's over in 2 weeks.
Tells this to you. You're a liar, Mr. Arnab. Nobody but me didn't say it to you a year or 2 years ago. You asked me a question about this attack. As I said, Russia does not need any kind of justification in our operation against terrorists. So-called justification is given by Ukrainian troops
for your own terrorism. What are you saying?
Ukrainian troops killing Russian and Ukrainian people in Donbass. Mr. Zalmay, stop your swearing. As I said, Ukrainian troops and American mercenaries, as Mr. Zalmay, do kill people in Ukraine on daily basis.
Is there a moderator on this program?
1 minute. Now, Nikita, I'm allowing the response from Peter to you, and I'm also welcoming on the other side right now. Just Wesley Kashin from Moscow. Yes, Peter.
You give me a question.
Okay.
Yeah, but your answers never end, Nikita. You got to put a full stop to your answer at some point. Thank you.
Not letting me
Mr. Arnab,
would you let me speak, please? Okay.
I said Wesley on the left, please. Thank you.
Shut up, this American guy.
This debate can't continue like this, Aditi, unless you put the guest I mentioned on the left. Thank you. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arnab. I think you're very, very, very smart questioning of the Russian participant. It's precisely what's happening. Russia is losing its battle, and the Russian leadership is very much afraid of the coming counteroffensive. They desperately want to change the narrative. Whether this attack came from the Russians themselves, from Ukrainians, or some other third force, it's clear that the Russians are desperate to change this narrative because what's come can be very, very hurtful. Mr. Prigozhin, the head of Wagner Group, has today said that this is the sign that the counteroffensive has already begun, in fact. And what we saw today is that the Kremlin, the holy of holies of Russian power, is unprotected. Its air defense systems is not working. It's because Vladimir Putin, just like he went into Ukraine expecting to take over Kiev in 3 days, was never prepared for this eventuality, was never prepared that he would have to defend Moscow. It shows you complete bankruptcy of his regime, militarily, philosophically, and politically.
To just get a view from Moscow again, Wesley Cashin is with me tonight. Wesley, where pictures are causing a lot of concern. But here's the point tonight, right? I think this claim that there was an attempt to kill Putin is very convenient, very, very convenient for the Russians, because it comes at a time when when Russia is in a big problem. You see, the Wagner Group says that I don't have ammunition. If ammunition is not replenished, if we are forced, in order to not run like cowardly rats afterwards, to either withdraw or die. These are the words of the Wagner Group. They have said that we are in a terrible situation. We don't have ammunitions, right? Every day we have stacks of thousands of bodies that we put in coffins and sent home. And he has also said that he has written to the Russian defense minister asking for ammunition as soon as possible. So my question to you is, are you running out of ammunition? Are Russians getting concerned? And is this whole assassination attempt theory an attempt to distract from the failures of the Russian forces or your mercenary forces on the front? Vaishli.
Okay. So let us get back to the facts. First of all, of course, the claims about the Russian losses. Russia is engaged in proxy war against the United States in Ukraine. So basically, any US official assessment of Russian losses is just US military propaganda. Just as Russia is saying plenty of various things about Ukrainian losses or other things, that's Russian military propaganda. Military propaganda is something which needs to be ignored. Second, Mr. Prigozhin is engaged into his own public relations war against certain figures in the Russian Ministry of Defense. He is getting his ammunition, probably not as much as he wants, and basically
his troops have been making steady gains in Bakhmut. They actually control more than 80% of that town. Although that was never.
Sorry, there's a terrible echo there. I'm getting
reason for that.
Yeah. No, but tell me one thing. You really believe that the drones went through? I mean, my question here is, just look at the pictures. Can I run the pictures full frame for a while? And if you look at the pictures, this is an attempt at. It can be seen to be an attempt to provoke the Russian people. My question is, who would want to provoke the Russian people at this point of time to change the direction of the war? Ruslan Bortnik is joining me from Kiev. Could Zelensky get so foolhardy as to do this, Ruslan?
We don't know, but I think this situation is make us closer to the new wave of escalation between Russia and Ukraine, and gives Russia a reason to use much much bigger weapons, some such kind of like a nuclear weapon and so on. It's a good reason, but at the same time, it's also a symbolic victory of Ukraine and Western partners, which shows how weak is Russian army and the Russian state nowadays, because somebody can bomb Kremlin. It's symbolic, very symbolic things, but in time when we are living postmodern time, it's very symbolic things which are extremely important also.
No, but when you see these pictures, are people in Ukraine worried, fearful, or afraid of a Russian response? Or what the likely Russian response to this will be? Ruslan?
Basically,
if we are,
yeah, Ruslan.
To hit any object in a real
if we are
manner,
talking about the average,
Can I have Ruslan on the right, please?
So
Thank you. Yeah, go on, Ruslan.
Okay. If you are talking about the average people, ordinary people, they are very glad because it's a sign of weakness of Russia. If we are talking about the politician system and expert system, of course we are waiting something kind an answer and revenge from Russian side. And also it can be a provocation from the Russian side. This situation, we also understand it.
You're not afraid of the consequences of this?
Of course we are afraid, but war is going on many days for now.
That's foolhardy. Okay, Nikita wants to come in here. What is the likely Russian response, Nikita? Whether this is true or not true, I'll get into that again later.
Russian response is has a daily basis, as Ukrainian terrorists attack are. Ukraine attacks us for a long time. They are killing civilians in Donbass, but we are going forward. You can say 100 words about how Russia is weak, but in fact, there are thousands of Ukrainian so-called soldiers killed in Bakhmut daily. It is Russian troops who are going forward. Mr. Bortnik, as I said, he is a military officer. He finished the military academy, but he is sitting in his key, telling these fairy tales to you because he understands. The so-called Ukrainian army is losing. He's afraid to go there to fight for Zelensky regime. He understands he would be killed as a traitor of Ukrainian people. And the real Ukrainian people are going to win, to liberate the Kiev from Zelensky regime.
But it's not the first time that
sooner
Russia...
or later.
Let's assume here...
But the liberty will come to Ukrainian land.
Nikita.
Mr. Arnav.
Nikita, let's assume here... 1 minute. I know my name. Thank you very much. You know, I'll get in Peter, your friend, on the other side. The reality is that you had once blamed Ukraine of shelling the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant in November. 4 months later, you yourself shelled the town, killing 3 civilians and wounding 2. So, you know, you have gone back on what you've said yourself. You also got it wrong. Putin called the Kerch bridge explosion in Crimea an act of terrorism. Detailed emerged later of how the driver of the truck was a resident of Russian Tatarstan who had got the truck job from an ad posted by a Moscow IP address. So, you know, you got a number of things wrong in the past. Now, instead of avoiding my question, Nikita, come back to my question. You're in trouble on the front, aren't you? I mean, a pure conventional war, you're in trouble. The Wagner group is fighting with the Russian Defense Ministry. Stuff is going public out here. They've threatened to withdraw. You are facing problems of ammunition to your private armies. And my question is, maybe you want to distract from all this, but will you continue to be responsible, Nikita? Do you want to push the war towards a nuclear arena like you've always threatened to? Is this the flashpoint that you want to push the war to? Are you taking this to a new level of brinkmanship by saying there was an attempt to target the Kremlin and kill Putin? Because when you make that kind of argument, you can take the war in any direction, Nikita. But there has to be a sense of responsibility. There has to be a sense of responsibility.
Your election speech, Mr. Arnav, is it your question?
This is exactly what happened. Already.
Mr.
Can you hear me? It's already happened. A Russian MP has demanded that Russia retaliate against Russia.
1 minute, Peter, let him complete. Peter, let Nikita complete, please. Peter, let Nikita complete.
As I said, Mr. Arnav, please stop telling these American fakes about Russian army weakness. It is just a propaganda. It is not Ukrainian troops fighting somewhere near Voronezh. It is Russian troops liberated, occupied territory.
Okay, what is the proof that this is a Ukrainian drone sent by Zelensky? What is the proof? What is the proof? Listen to my question. Listen to my question. Mr. Nikita, what is your proof that this is a drone commissioned by the Ukrainian army and sent by Zelensky? Simple question here. What is your proof of that? Okay, let me put that question. Let me put that question.
You don't give me a chance to answer.
No, 1 second. I'm giving a chance to someone else also. I am putting that very question here. I'm putting that question to Vaishli. Vaishli, my question is to you. Where is the proof that this is a drone that has been commissioned and sent by Zelensky to kill Putin?
Mr. Arnav.
Where's the hard evidence of that, Vaishli?
Mr. Arnav.
Vaishli on the left.
I'm waiting for a chance to answer your question.
I'm asking another guest, sir, from Moscow the question. Vaishli, is there proof?
Sorry,
is there concrete proof of that?
I barely hear you and don't see you.
Vaishli, my question to you is, if the Ukrainians ask you now, where is the concrete proof? Where is the concrete proof that this was an act of aggression commissioned by our president, that Zelensky was trying to kill Putin? Besides the visual that we have, where is the concrete proof of that?
Guys, I don't hear you.
Where is the concrete proof? Can you hear me, Vaishli? Okay, let me take that to Fred.
You can.
Okay, so I'll go slowly.
I don't hear what they are talking about.
Okay, I'll go slowly. In your view, where is the concrete proof that this was an attack carried out by Ukraine on Zelensky's instructions, that it was an assassination attempt? How have you come to that conclusion? Where is the proof?
So basically, we have, of course, at this early stage, it's difficult to talk about some final proofs, but we had a chain of UAV attacks happening in various areas inside Russia, quite deep in the Russian territory in recent weeks. The attacks have been carried out with a particular type of drones, which are converted Chinese commercial drones called Mugin 5, something like that. The drones used in the attack on Kremlin look absolutely similar, so it's highly plausible to suspect the Ukrainians to carry out an attack against this target in the center of the Russian capital.
Okay, let me take that to Charles. Charles, does that sound a little speculative? They are saying there have been UAV drone attacks, and we therefore believe that if there has been a drone attack on the Kremlin, it could only have come from Ukraine. But that's a very long conclusion to draw, Charles.
I would agree with that. I think there are drones easily accessible to anybody who wants to get them.
Fred on the left.
And as a consequence, we simply have no way to confirm where this came from. But even as we talk about this alarming news from Moscow, I think it's important to keep in mind the bigger picture. Russia has invaded Ukraine. It is Russia that is attacking Ukraine's cities and attacking civilians and committing war crimes. We are now in a situation in which Ukraine is about to launch a significant offensive against Russian positions, Russian forces that continue to occupy Ukrainian territory. It's that focus that is the central concern of Ukrainian armed forces today. They have been taking strikes against depots in Crimea, against Russian defensive positions in eastern Ukraine, even as they continue to defend Bakhmut. And so all of Ukraine's efforts are now focused on making successful this effort to take back more land that is occupied by Russian forces. That's why I think it is quite unlikely that Zelensky or anyone else in the Ukrainian government would authorize an attack on the Kremlin, which would distract Ukraine from its coming ground offensive and try to put the weight of opinion on Russia's side. And I think that's unlikely to happen, and therefore I think we should wait till we get better information about exactly what happened.
Yeah, but you know what happens in these situations,
Charles? Russia should not use this as an excuse to carry out further reckless attacks against Ukraine.
But you see what happens in these situations, Charles. Sometimes the counter-reaction happens before you've investigated what really happened. Situation is charged, emotions are charged. There is a narrative which has been set. Ukraine has been positioned, at least internally in Russia, as the aggressor, and Zelensky is being portrayed as the person who wanted to personally kill Putin. This is not about just a war. This is about an attempt to kill Putin. So if there is an extraordinary level of a response to that, Ruslan, it will be seen to be justified. I don't think, people can talk, and Zelensky has just given a statement saying, let there be a tribunal, we didn't do this, let a tribunal decide. But who's going to wait for a tribunal? I mean, Putin can use this, can't he, Ruslan? He can use this very well, even before any tribunal or third party tries to find out what happened on the ground.
We don't know what happened, but of course Russia and Putin can use it. I want to remind you words of ex-Prime Minister of Israel, Mr. Bennett, who said that Putin promised him, don't kill, don't assassinate Zelensky in the first weeks of war. Maybe this attack to Kremlin and claiming about the assassination attack to Putin, it means that Russian government, Russian side is going to assassinate Ukrainian leadership and something like this. Many reasons, but Russia obtained a good tool, a good reasons for the new wave escalation. It's a big dangers for nowadays.
It's extremely dangerous. I began by saying, Fred, this is reaching a new level of craziness. This is reaching a new level of craziness.
You're asking me?
Yes, I'm asking you, Fred. I mean, I'm asking you, Fred, because
we've had a string of these things, the Crimea Bridge, the Nord Stream pipelines. I mean, this sort of thing has been going on. Someone has been doing it. And you're right, the information we have right now is pretty imperfect. But I think it's, Charles is right. It's what's going to happen on the battlefield that's going to make all the difference. He's probably wrong to say that the Ukrainian army and intelligence services can't chew gum and walk at the same time. They can, and they're most likely responsible for this attack on the Kremlin. It's pretty spectacular, and I know that the Ukrainian Post Office just issued a stamp commemorating the attack on the Kremlin, as they did with the Crimea Bridge. So there is, I mean...
well, just one minute. Are you saying the Ukrainians... 1 minute. Are you saying, and if that is the case, this is extremely irresponsible, because you have, and I can put everyone, on the one side you have Zelensky saying, no, we did not try to kill Putin, we were not behind this. But are you saying that by issuing a stamp, the Ukrainian government is officially commemorating and celebrating this attack on the Kremlin? Is that what you're saying, Fred?
Well, sure, they obviously are, and they did with the Crimea Bridge as well. And they have their reasons to celebrate. But in fact, these,
but that would be foolhardy.
Distractions.
That would be hugely foolhardy.
These are really distractions. I don't think this particular story is going to last more than 24 hours. The real story is what's happening on the battlefields down there. And it is grinding on. Probably some dramatic events are going to come, and that's what's going to determine how. My concern is
always, Fred, as you know, we have to learn from history. Wars don't always end conventionally. I hope you remember Hiroshima, what happened. Wars don't end well. Things go out of hand. One side gets desperate. One side presses the button. And that is my concern. Isn't it your concern as well, Peter? Why would Ukraine be celebrating or commemorating this attack? I think that's really foolish. It's provocative.
Once again, it does not necessarily mean that it has any responsibility for what happened. This could be, like I said, it could have come from the internal opposition. To suggest that Ukraine wanted to take out Vladimir Putin is preposterous. We know that he does not spend much time in the Kremlin. he has a residence outside of Moscow. So it's ridiculous to suggest that. I agree that Moscow is going to use this as a pretext. Already its deputies of parliament are demanding retaliation. We are actually going to be facing a very troubling night tonight. They may strike on our government offices. This is very, very concerning. But once again, just to wrap up, folks, the one man who can decide the outcome of this war, avoid all the bad scenarios, the nuclear war, is Vladimir Putin. All he has to do is withdraw his troops and leave Ukraine alone, and problems will be solved. Then Russia will start paying reparations, making amends, and maybe then we will start a long healing process.
That blame game is 1 year old, Peter. It doesn't help now. Not when a lot of truths have come out in between, including how the CIA bombed the Nord Stream. Don't try and play the game of innocence anymore in this. Don't play the game of innocence anymore in this. Zelensky is very corrupt. You know that. There are allegations of how he's made 400 million. And how the corruption is becoming his sort of sole intoxicant in this. Yes, you can say whatever. Remember the journalist who's put all of this stuff out. The journalist who's put all of this stuff out is also the journalist who revealed what America did at the Abu Ghraib prison. At that time also there were cynics like you who shook their head and say, no, we don't torture prisoners. We don't do any of this. So the fact is that there have been grave mistakes made by the American-Ukrainian side. And don't let me remind you of the billions that American companies like Raytheon are making out of the war. And foolhardiness, I think if this is true, you should investigate this. How can Ukraine, directly or indirectly, commemorate or celebrate what has happened on the Kremlin? How can you do that? Because then you are actually going to encourage another wave of provocation or attacks from the Russians. But my question to Ashley is, whatever has happened here, can you take the war to the civilian areas again? I don't think you should. I don't think Putin should. Let the war continue where it is. My concern is if the attacks starting happening in Kiev, in the civilian areas, Ashley.
Basically, the attacks are carried out to achieve military goals. Attacking civilian areas in Kiev using cruise missiles, which are produced in limited numbers and cost several $100,000 each, is like a kind of stupid. No, I don't think that Russia needs any excuses to do what it is doing, because basically we are already in a state of proxy war against NATO. Both sides are doing anything possible to hurt the other side. The only thing which is keeping this situation from escalating is the threat of nuclear war, and that doesn't change by what happened in Kremlin.
So then the question here, does this bring us closer to a nuclear situation? Does this, Nikita, can I get that from you? Does this bring us closer to a nuclear situation? What's your reading?
No.
Okay.
Because Ukrainian terrorists do not have nuclear weapons, and Russia do not really need nuclear weapons to liberate Ukraine. You see, your guest Bortnik is sitting in Kiev. He's afraid of Russian army. Mr. Zalmay will soon go back to his native New York because he is afraid of Russian army. Nobody of these smiling guys are not ready to fight. They understand we are winning. Because the liberty, the will of Ukrainian and Russian people to be free from Mr. Zalmay and his government will win. We doesn't need nuclear weapons to prove our right to be free. Your country, Mr. Arnab, was a colony for a long time. Did you need a nuclear weapon to become independent? No. We also doesn't need it. We will be free. We will win, as you did. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, so then in that case, I didn't get an answer on why on 7 occasions Putin has threatened the use of the nuclear card or used the nuclear word 7 occasions in the last 12 months.
No.
Yes, yes. Oh, yes, every time, yes.
No, he said he would use nuclear weapon. Mr. Arnab.
Not use nuclear weapons, play the nuclear card.
if Russia would be attacked by United States and other NATO countries, which has also nuclear weapons. If they will continue using mercenaries and proxies, like a spy as Mr. Zalmay, or like as traitor as Mr. Bortnik, we don't need nuclear weapons to move these people away from Ukraine. Ukrainian people would be able to do it themselves if NATO didn't produce ammunition and weapons to so-called Ukrainian army. If United States wouldn't send Mr. Zalmay to Kyiv to tell you fairy tales about Russian weakness, nobody would tell these fairy tales.
Well, we are pretty much on the edge right now. Let me just tell you that for all the rhetoric out here, we are very much on the edge. People are taking the situation seriously. I'm looking forward to the next 24 hours. We haven't heard from Putin, have we, Ruslan? We haven't heard from Putin. There's a story about how he's operating from a bunker, all coming from the Russian media, Russian secondary sources in the media, very carefully planted Russian narrative. Where is Putin?
We don't know, but the next 24 hours will show us the real reasons and causes of this attack on Kremlin. We will see what Russia will do, and this will be the best answer what happened in this situation. Was it Ukrainian or anti-Kremlin troops? Was it Russian provocation? The next 24 hours will show us it. Dangerous time, and it's great that we are growing up these topics nowadays.
Okay, Charles, your take at the very end. Next 24 hours, you think the story is going to die, or it's going to sort of have a domino effect?
So far, we've been through some very dangerous moments. Some missiles landing on Polish territory. We've seen Russian fighter jets force down a U.S. drone over the Black Sea. So far, Russia, Ukraine, and the United States have avoided the dangerous escalation that I think everybody wants to avoid. I do think that this is a dangerous moment. I'm guessing the Russians will use this as an excuse to increase their reckless attacks against Ukraine's population centers, in part because they are losing on the battlefield. And as a consequence, they don't have options except to use long-range weapons to hit Ukrainian infrastructure and Ukrainian cities. I hope that cooler heads prevail at this dangerous moment. Let's get the facts and let the facts speak for themselves.
Unfortunately, right now, at this stage of the war, nobody's waiting for the facts here. A lot of rhetoric. We are following this closely. Charles, Peter, Fred, Nikita, Ruslan, and of course Vaishali. Thank you very much. And viewers, when I'm back, yesterday we debated the Bajrang Dal controversy, and the Congress party seems to have really pushed itself into a corner right now, because it is seen to be taking a position that is very, very unnecessarily soft on the PFI. At a time when there are reports of an informal alliance with the SDPI, which is a political wing of the PFI, why does the Congress party have such an obsession with its own perceived notion of minority appeasement? When I'm back.